Hello, I'm Richard Raffan. I'm going to make a small mallet, little carver's mallet, out of this block of ash, claret ash. So, if you want a fine dead center, this is not a particularly well cut block. There's a split just there which comes in, so that's the tail end of the pith, so that's probably going to be the place to have the head. You can draw the diagonals to find center, but it's roughly there. And I tend to do these things by eye, because the more you do it by eye, the better you get at it. So, into eyeball between the two, halfway between the two sides, and then roll it over 90 degrees, same this end. So, goes there and then to there. It doesn't look too bad. And if you want to check it, you can always draw a circle on the end just to see how it looks, and if you want to, you can adjust that, but that's near enough. It's good enough for this one. The blank's all over the place anyway, so that'll be fine. Now I'm going to rough this down initially with a deep fluted bowl gouge, which is what I tend to prefer these days for roughing down, and this I can run probably around 1400 or so. Series of scoops back from one end to the other. The idea is just to get the worst of the corners off. Most that's being done with the steep left wing, and I've got an asymmetric bowl gouge, and so I'm using the right wing, not the left wing. Use the right wing and come back the other direction. And that just gives me a much broader shaving. So still a little flat area there that will come down as I start to shave it a bit more. Right, up at the end I'm going to use a 3/4 inch skew here, just peel away the end. I've got the teeth of the spur drive coming in, so allow for those, just establishing really the overall diameter or length rather of the mallet, what I've got to play with. Coming down the back here, and use the skew point, but generally use the 3/8 spindle gouge for this. And I found that I can take more off, go right down to the cone, and just tighten it up a little bit. Now, overall, I want to be able to feel the handle as I go along, so I tend to have the handle on to the right, to the tailstock end when I'm making these, and the head will be somewhere up around that area. So just going to develop the handle. Really is a series of scooping cuts with the gouge. And the other way of doing that is with the skew as a peeler. Little V groove across the bottom, so that when I come round with the long point down, and I shift the point of the cut from the edge where it is at the moment to the point of the tool, then it's going to break away. Grain's going to break away nice and cleanly in the bottom. I just want to make sure there's no nasty twisted grain or anything showing up. That's tearing a bit at the moment, just because I'm going a bit fast down there. This looks rough as guts because it was just a peeling cut. The handle is still a bit fat for my hand, so it's going to come down a bit. Now the rest is going to come up, so that I can do the head. Now it's a shear cut with a long point up, and then I can just roll the tool over, go in the other direction with a long point up. And I like to have the fullness of the curve about a third of the way back down the head. And that felt like the grain picking out a bit, and there was a bit of twisted grain up in the head, so let's see what happened. Yeah, it's just picked out, very difficult to see, it's picked out a bit there. And when you do have grain, this happens occasionally, you could use a peeling cut instead, and that will give you a pretty smooth surface. It's not as good as a shear cut, but when the grain's absolutely straight, which it is in that part of the curve, it allows you to get a surface where you want it, which is cut clean enough to sand, and that's all you need. Now, the transition here, I'm going to bring the tool rest, drop the tool rest a bit. All I want in this cut is just have the bevel side rubbing against the wood I just cut. Just using the point of the tool, and the bevel side is what's cutting against that surface. That should leave me nice and clean, which it is. Now, cutting down the handle here, I'm going to use them. I can cut with the long point up, but I try not to have the tool lying at right angles to the axis, so I prefer to have the long point down. The tool's cutting at the same angle, and the portion of the edge cutting is still about 45 degrees, and I just get a much nicer cut, and any pressure I'm putting into the cut is parallel to the lathe axis, so it's less likely to chatter. So go from having the long point up as I start the curve, and then I tend to just flick the tool over, have the long point down, so I can see what I'm doing as I go all the way into the tailstock, into the tail center rather. And I'm just going to put a little groove in there, so it kind of becomes decorative on the end grain. This is looking a bit straight at the moment, and I like to have a bit more of a flare to it, and that grain's picked out a little bit there too, so I must have been going a bit hard. Looks better, feels better. Long point down. I'm just going to get a bit of a curve in here. Just roll the tool slightly so the point of the cut comes to the point of the tool. Looks about right. Now round the front, just curve this over a little bit. Now coming round the other side, it would be quite nice to have this so I can put it back between centres eventually, and so if I need to clean off the head at any time I can. So I'll start the cut up here. I need to bring some light across so I can see what's happening over on the headstock side, and I'll use the 3/8 spindle gouge with a very long bevel. That will allow me to get in here. thought I was going to be able to get this back on the lathe between centres, but I wasn't thinking that one through, so I'll just have to just finish it nicely from here, and I want it slightly concave so it sits flat on a bench. And I don't sand these things so that, rubbed against the against something here. It's blue, come off the lathe, but that's going to be a hitting end, so it won't really matter too much, will it? And that will sit on the lathe bench upright quite happily. And because it's got a nice smooth handle, every time I use it I remember how clever I was cutting it nice and smooth, didn't need to sand it.